Rain pelted the darkened streets like shards of glass, soaking Alara to the bone. Her leather jacket offered little protection against the storm, but she didn't care. All she wanted was to escape the town that whispered of her failures, the memories that clawed at her at night, and the man who had betrayed her in ways too cruel to name. Her boots splashed through puddles as she darted down alleyways, her breath ragged, heart hammering like a war drum. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the shadowy figure ahead for just a fraction of a second. A massive shape crouched near a dumpster. At first, she froze, her instincts screaming to run. But something in the figure's posture, almost painfully tense, made her hesitate. And then came the low, guttural growl. Not a dog. Not any dog she'd ever heard. This was primal, wild, and terrifyingly intelligent. She wanted to flee, but her feet felt rooted to the slick asphalt. The growl deepened, resonating in her chest, vibrating through her bones. "You shouldn't be out here alone," a voice said, deep, rough, with a commanding authority that made her spine shiver. The rain slid down his face in rivulets, and even in the flickering neon light, she could see the intensity in his eyes. Her rational mind screamed at her to run, to vanish into the shadows, but some reckless part of her, some part desperate for connection, or perhaps madness, stepped forward. Are you okay?" she asked, voice trembling. He straightened, revealing the full scope of his presence. Broad-shouldered, tall, with a dark intensity that seemed to drink in the storm around him. There was a subtle shift, almost too quick to notice, the way his pupils dilated and his muscles tensed. Predator, not human. "Not exactly," he admitted, his voice carrying a dangerous edge, yet a hint of something softer lingered. Pain? Regret? She couldn't tell, but it made her chest tighten. Lightning illuminated him again, and for the briefest moment, she saw a flash of fur along his jawline, the shape of a wolf in his stance, the predatory grace in his limbs. Then he blinked, and it was gone. He was just a man again. The storm grew louder, and before either of them could speak further, a sharp, unnatural howl echoed from the forest beyond the town. The sound wasn't far. It was close. Too close. He stiffened, instincts kicking in. "You need to leave," he said, urgency slicing through the rain. "Now." Alara's pulse spiked. I can't. My car." She gestured vaguely toward the flooded street where water churned in waves. "It's stuck." He exhaled sharply, frustration flickering across his features. "Then come with me, fast, and don't ask questions." She hesitated, the rational part of her mind screaming, "Run, run, run!" But something in the way he moved, protective, commanding, and terrifyingly familiar, made her trust him just enough. The next few minutes blurred into chaos. He guided her through back alleys, through streets where shadows twisted unnaturally under the lightning's flicker, and past the edge of town where the forest began. Every so often, the growl she had heard earlier echoed again, closer this time, and she could see the shadows moving between the trees. Large, powerful shadows that didn't belong to ordinary animals. Finally, they reached the edge of a cliff overlooking a river swollen with rain. He paused, scanning the forest. "We're not safe yet. They're hunting." "Hunting?" Her voice cracked. He turned, his eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made her knees weaken. "Yes, and they won't stop until they find us. Or you." The wind whipped around them, and she felt the charge of the storm, the raw electricity in the air, like the universe itself was warning her. She was trembling, cold, terrified, and inexplicably drawn to him all at once. "I don't understand," she whispered, voice barely audible over the wind. "Why me?" He hesitated, as if weighing whether to reveal something that could change her forever. Then he said, with a low, almost reluctant certainty. Because you're already part of it, whether you know it or not. Before she could respond, a massive shape exploded from the tree line. A wolf, impossibly large, eyes glowing like molten gold, teeth bared, muscles rippling under wet fur. Its growl was deafening, primal, and full of hunger. Without thinking, he stepped in front of her, every movement fluid, lethal. And then, impossibly, he shifted. Bones cracked and reformed, heightening, expanding. Fur surged along his limbs, his face elongating into the muzzle of a massive wolf. And yet, even in that form, his eyes, human eyes, full of fire and something softer, never left hers. Alara's scream tore through the storm, but she didn't run. Something primal inside her recognized him, even without knowing why. And the wolf, her rescuer, her protector, lunged into the shadows, meeting the other beast with a force that shook the ground. Rain, thunder, and raw power collided. And in that chaos, Alara knew with a certainty that terrified and thrilled her. Her life had just changed forever. Alara woke to the smell of damp earth and wood smoke. Her head throbbed, her clothes soaked through, and the memories of last night's storm came back in flashes, lightning, growls, and the impossibly large wolf that had saved her. She blinked against the dim light filtering through the cabin window, realizing she wasn't alone. He was there. The man, no, the alpha, sat across from her on a rough-hewn chair, his dark eyes unreadable as he stirred a small fire. His posture relaxed slightly, but the tension in his shoulders was unmistakable, like a predator always ready to strike. "You're awake," he said, voice low, rough-edged, yet calm. He didn't rise, didn't move closer, just observed her, like measuring something, delicate and dangerous. I think you saved my life," Alara said, her voice hoarse, uncertain. He gave a non-committal shrug, but the corner of his mouth quirked. "That wasn't a favor. It's instinct." Instinct. The word made her shiver. Something about him felt ancient, something that wasn't entirely human. And yet, beneath the sharp edge of his presence, she sensed a quiet, reluctant care. I should go," she said, glancing toward the door. "I don't know. I don't even know who you are." He finally stood, tall and imposing. Even in the small space of the cabin, he filled the room with an energy that made her chest tighten. "You're not going anywhere until you're safe." "Safe?" she echoed, a tremor in her voice. "From what?" He hesitated, gaze dropping to the fire for a fraction of a second before he answered. "From them. The ones that chased you last night. You didn't think it was a coincidence that you ended up in the middle of that storm." Her heart quickened. "I don't understand. What are you talking about?" He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, exuding both power and caution. "I shouldn't tell you. Not yet. Some truths aren't meant to be given freely." Alara bristled. "I don't need a mysterious stranger to protect me. I can manage." The corner of his mouth tugged into something almost like a smile. "Can you?" he asked softly, and the single word carried more weight than she expected. There was a challenge in it, yes, but also an acknowledgement of her strength. For a long moment, they just watched each other. The storm outside had calmed, leaving only the faint patter of rain on the roof. And yet, the tension between them was palpable. Electric, like the air before a lightning strike. Finally, he broke the silence. "I'm Kyle," he said simply, as if the name alone should carry meaning. "And you are?" "Alara," she replied cautiously. Saying her name aloud made her feel both grounded and exposed. She noticed how he said it, like he had tasted the word on his tongue, testing its sound, its weight. Kyle nodded, almost imperceptibly. "Alara," he repeated, almost to himself. Then, in a motion that was startling in its swiftness, he strode to a small cabinet and pulled out a dry blanket, tossing it over her shoulders. The warmth seeped through her soaked clothes, and she realized with a start that he had been watching her shiver the entire time. "Why, are you helping me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He avoided her gaze, fiddling with a small knife on the table. "Because it's what I do." The words were clipped, but his voice betrayed something deeper, an unspoken code, a promise not shared lightly. For the next hour they sat in awkward silence, broken only by the occasional crackle of the fire. Alara's mind raced with questions, too many questions, and yet she didn't feel safe enough to voice them all. Something about Kale was magnetic, drawing her in even as fear curled in her stomach. At one point, she noticed a small scar on his wrist, faint but distinct. Curiosity won over caution. "What happened to you?" she asked. He froze, the knife in his hands stilling. Then, after a moment, he replied, "Old mistakes. Things I can't undo." There was a heaviness in his tone that tugged at her chest, a subtle vulnerability hiding beneath the danger. You're hurt," she said gently, surprising herself with the concern in her voice. Kale's gaze met hers, sharp and piercing, and for a heartbeat, she thought she saw the predator within him hesitate. "I'm fine," he said finally, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of something else, regret, perhaps, or loneliness. Alara swallowed hard, sensing the distance he kept, the walls he had built around himself. And yet, in that moment, something fragile and raw flickered between them. A connection she couldn't explain. A pull, magnetic and impossible to ignore. The night wore on, the storm outside leaving a soft drizzle in its wake. Kyle finally broke the tension, moving toward the door. "You should sleep. You're exhausted." "I can't just leave?" she asked, suddenly afraid that the fragile trust they had built could shatter with his absence. He paused, his hand on the doorframe, then turned his gaze toward her. "I'll be here, watching." The words were simple, but they carried a weight that made her chest tighten, a silent promise that the danger outside wasn't the only threat, and that he was not entirely what he seemed. Alara lay down on the small cot, blanket wrapped tightly around her, her mind a swirl of questions and emotions she didn't dare unravel. Outside, the forest whispered secrets she could almost hear but not quite understand, and for the first time since the storm, she felt a strange sense of being tethered, pulled into a world she didn't yet know, drawn toward a man who should have been her enemy. And yet, she found herself hoping he wouldn't let her go. Alara woke to the soft hum of morning light filtering through the cabin's thin curtains. Outside, the forest glistened from last night's rain, mist curling around gnarled trees like silent watchers. The air was crisp, almost electric, and she felt a shiver that had nothing to do with cold. Kale was already awake. He moved with a predator's grace, gathering firewood with quiet efficiency. Even in the muted morning, there was an intensity to him that made her pulse quicken. She tried to shake off the lingering unease, but the memory of his wolf form, the size, the strength, the eyes, it clawed at her mind. "Morning," she said cautiously, attempting casual conversation. He didn't answer immediately, only casting a glance over his shoulder, sharp and calculating. "Sleep well?" "I think so," she muttered, adjusting the blanket around her shoulders. "You didn't have to bring me here." He shrugged, stacking firewood with precision. "You'd have gotten yourself killed out there. I don't make a habit of letting that happen." There it was again, the calm authority, the unshakable confidence, the sense that he operated under rules she didn't yet understand. And though she tried to dismiss it, A small, uneasy part of her wondered, what is he? Her curiosity got the better of her. Kyle, last night, what were you? The wolf. It wasn't real, was it? He froze, a muscle ticking in his jaw. For a moment, his eyes darkened, almost stormy, and he said nothing. She felt the silence stretch, heavy and unnerving, as though the cabin itself was holding its breath. You shouldn't ask that, he finally said, his voice low, rough, and threaded with warning. Some things aren't meant for humans to know. Alara bristled, offended, but also intrigued. So, you can just lie to me? Or hide things from me? I don't even know if I can trust you. Kale's gaze flicked toward her, sharp and unyielding. Trust isn't given, it's earned. The words were simple, but they carried a weight that made her stomach knot. He wasn't cruel, he was guarded, and the barrier around him was one she instinctively wanted to breach. She stayed silent, studying him. Something about his movements, the subtle twitch of his ears when he listened, the way his eyes scanned the tree line constantly, was too precise, too alert, too wolf-like. And then, as if testing her, he shifted slightly. Not into a wolf, but his pupils elongated for a fraction of a second, sharp and golden, before returning to normal. Her breath caught in her throat. You're not just a man, she whispered, her voice trembling. Kyle's hands froze and he slowly turned toward her, expression unreadable. Curiosity can get you killed, he said softly, almost a whisper. Then, after a pause, he added, but I see it in your eyes. You already know. Alara's pulse raced. She wanted to deny it, wanted to insist she was imagining things, but every instinct screamed the truth. He was something else. Something dangerous. And yet, something familiar. Something magnetic that pulled at her despite the fear coiling in her chest. A rustle outside the cabin broke the tension. Kyle moved instantly, body coiling like a spring, eyes scanning the forest with lethal precision. Alara followed his gaze and saw the glint of something moving. A shadow slipping between the trees, silent and deliberate. They're close, Kale muttered, tension coiling in his shoulders. Closer than last night? You can't stay here for long. Who's hunting me? She asked, the words trembling. And why? He shook his head, expression hardening. You'll understand in time, but you're not safe until then. Alara swallowed hard, heart pounding. Something primal inside. Her recognized the truth in his words. He is not lying. And I am not safe. But it wasn't just fear she felt. There was something else. An inexplicable pull, a magnetic tug toward him that she couldn't ignore. Her instincts screamed caution, yet a deeper, stranger part of her longed to know him, to understand him, even if it meant walking into danger. Kale moved toward the door, then paused, glancing back. Stay inside, don't wander, and don't ask questions you're not ready to hear. She nodded, though a part of her bristled at the command. Questions are all I have, she thought. Questions and curiosity. As he stepped outside, the forest seemed to watch him. The shadows twisted unnaturally, leaves shivering without wind. And for the first time, Alara realized that the world she had known, the ordinary, safe world, was gone. In its place was something older, wilder, and far more dangerous. And somehow, impossibly, Kale was at the center of it. Her chest tightened. She was terrified, and she was already drawn to him. The morning mist lingered in the forest as Alara stepped cautiously outside the cabin, her senses alert to every rustle of leaves, every distant snap of a twig. Kyle was already there, standing near the edge of the tree line, his dark eyes scanning the woods with a predator's focus that made her stomach tighten. "You don't have to follow me," she said softly, keeping her voice low, almost afraid it would shatter the fragile connection they were building. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he studied her, the muscles along his jaw tightening as if weighing her words. Finally, he spoke. "I'm not following. I'm making sure you stay alive." Alara's chest tightened at his words. There was no warmth in them, no ease, but there was truth. And that was more than she had expected from anyone in a long time. They walked together along a narrow forest path, the wet pine needles muffling their steps. Silence stretched between them, comfortable and uneasy all at once. Finally, Alara broke it, her voice hesitant. Why me? Out of everyone, why am I caught up in all of this?" Kyle's eyes flicked to her, a shadow crossing his face. He hesitated, then said quietly, almost as if confessing to himself, "You have something they want. Something rare. And something about you calls to me." Alara blinked, taken aback. "Calls to you?" "Yes," he said, his tone low and steady but not unkind. "I can't explain it fully, but it's undeniable. And it's dangerous, for both of us." She swallowed hard, a mixture of fear and something else stirring in her chest. Danger, but pull. Fear, but fascination. She tried to process it, tried to ground herself in logic, but logic had no place here. For the next few hours, they moved deeper into the forest. And slowly, Kale began to let her in. Not fully, not yet, but just enough to show glimpses of the man beneath the predator. He spoke of the forest, its hidden paths, its secret dangers, the patterns of the creatures that called it home. Each word revealed knowledge that felt ancient, deep-rooted, almost sacred. And with each story, Alara saw the edges of his hardened exterior soften, ever so slightly. When they paused at a small clearing, sunlight filtering through the canopy, she dared to ask, "Do you ever rest? Just let yourself be?" Kyle's expression darkened, just for a moment. "Rest is a luxury I rarely afford myself. There's always something to guard, someone to protect, mistakes to atone for." His gaze flicked to the shadows. "I've done things I regret, things I can't undo." Alara felt a pang of empathy, a desire to reach out, to bridge the distance between them. "I understand," she said softly. "I've made mistakes too. Things I wish I could take back." For the first time, Kale looked at her, not with the sharp alertness of a predator, but with something closer to understanding. "You're different," he murmured. "Stronger than you realize, and braver than most humans would be in your place." Her heart thudded at his words. They weren't compliments. They weren't flattery. They were recognition. And recognition was rare in her life. As the day wore on, they shared small moments, Kale teaching her how to navigate the forest silently, how to read the subtle signs of animals and shifting shadows. She watched him with a mixture of awe and trepidation, noticing the careful precision in his movements, the way his senses were tuned to everything around him. Not just the forest, but her. When a sudden rustle in the underbrush made her freeze, he was instantly by her side, arms sliding around her protectively. "Stay close," he whispered, his breath warm against her ear. "No sudden moves." The closeness made her pulse spike. There was a magnetic pull she couldn't resist, a pull that drew her toward him even as fear and reason screamed at her to retreat. She wanted to pull away, to insist on distance, but something deeper, a bond she didn't understand yet, kept her rooted. Hours later, they returned to the cabin as the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and blood red. Kale moved to start a fire while she prepared a meager dinner, and for the first time, There was a small, comfortable rhythm between them. "You trust me," he said suddenly, his voice carrying over the crackle of the flames. Alara paused, her hands stilling. I think I do," she admitted, almost in disbelief. "I don't know why, but I feel like I can." Kyle's gaze softened, just slightly, just enough for her to catch it, and he nodded. "That's a start. Trust is a dangerous thing for people like us, but it's necessary. For survival, and for more." Her chest tightened at the unspoken implication. More? She thought, heart pounding. What is he saying? Night settled, over the cabin, the forest alive with whispers and movement beyond the walls. And yet, for the first time, Alara felt a fragile sense of safety. Not absolute safety. Nothing in this world offered that, but a promise that someone powerful, dangerous, and impossibly magnetic was watching over her. And as she lay down that night, listening to the soft breathing of the man who was slowly becoming something more than just a protector, she realized something both terrifying and exhilarating. She wanted to know him. All of him. Even if it meant risking everything. The next morning the forest was quiet. Too quiet. Mist hung low over the ground, curling like silent fingers around the gnarled roots of ancient trees. Alara moved cautiously, her boots sinking slightly into the wet earth. Kale was just ahead, ears twitching, every muscle coiled, every sense alert. "Something's wrong," he muttered, his tone tight with barely contained tension. "They're close. Closer than yesterday." Alara's stomach knotted. Who are they?" Kyle didn't answer immediately. Instead, he signaled her to follow silently, weaving through the trees with a predator's grace. Every step seemed measured, every sound calculated. She struggled to keep pace, heart hammering not only from fear, but from the way her chest tightened whenever he moved near. Minutes stretched into an eternity, until a sudden rustle shattered the stillness. From the shadows leapt two figures, wolves, larger than any she had ever seen, eyes glowing with a predatory hunger. But these weren't normal wolves. Their movements were calculated, almost human-like, their snarls deep and resonant with intelligence. Kale dropped into a low stance, his eyes flashing gold. "Stay behind me," he commanded, voice sharp and unyielding. Alara froze, terrified, but also captivated by the raw power radiating from him. Then, in an almost fluid motion, Kale shifted. Bones cracked and reshaped, muscles expanding, fur sprouting along his limbs. The man she had begun to trust became a massive wolf, gold eyes blazing, teeth bared, a growl that vibrated through the forest floor itself. The other wolves circled, snarling, eyes locked on Kale. And her. Alara wanted to run, but something deeper held her rooted, a connection she didn't fully understand. She realized then that these creatures weren't just hunting Kale. They were hunting her. And if he faltered, she would be next. The confrontation was a blur of movement. Kale lunged, fast and precise, meeting one wolf with a force that shook the forest floor. He didn't just fight, he dominated, each strike calculated, every movement a blend of human strategy and animal instinct. Alara's heart pounded as she watched, helpless, but unwilling to look away. And then one of the wolves broke past Kale's defenses, aiming for her. Her scream tore through the forest. Without hesitation, Kale twisted midair, catching the wolf with a powerful swipe. The force sent both tumbling into the underbrush, leaves and mud flying. His growl, deep, terrifying but unmistakably protective, rippled through the air. When the wolves finally retreated, vanishing into the shadows, Kale returned to his human form in a painful, bone-cracking shift. His chest heaved, eyes golden for just a moment before returning to their dark, guarded hue. "You're safe," he said, though his voice was rough, strained. "For now." Alara stumbled toward him, heart racing. They were going to hurt me." Kyle's expression softened, just slightly, but the ferocity in his posture remained. "I told you, they won't stop. Not while you're here, and not while you're with me." She noticed the faint trembling in his hands, the way his jaw clenched. Beneath the predator, beneath the danger, there was fear. Fear for her. Fear for something he couldn't entirely control. "Why? Why me?" she asked again, voice trembling. "Why am I the one they're after?" Kale's gaze met hers, unflinching. "Because of what you are, and because of what you will become. You don't know it yet, but you're already part of a world you can't escape." Alara's stomach churned. Part of her wanted to scream, to reject the supernatural reality he spoke of. Another part, an almost terrifying part, wanted to throw herself into it, to trust him completely, despite the danger. The forest fell silent again, but the tension lingered. Kyle stayed close, protective, vigilant, like a living shield between her and the unseen threat. For the first time, Alara realized how deep her reliance on him had grown, and how dangerous that reliance could become. As they returned to the cabin, her mind spun with fear, curiosity, and an unsettling thrill. Kale's world was darker, wilder, and more dangerous than anything she had ever known. And yet, with every step, she felt drawn to him more than ever. That night, she lay awake listening to the sounds of the forest. Rustling leaves, distant howls, the whisper of wind through branches. And she knew, without a doubt, that nothing would ever be the same again. Not the forest, not the storm, and certainly not the man. No, the wolf, who had become her protector. And in that dark, fragile silence, a new understanding took root. Survival was no longer enough. To stay alive, she would have to trust Kale completely. And to do that, she would have to face not just the predators outside, but the truths hidden deep within both of them. The next night, the forest was silent, draped in shadows and moonlight. Alara had grown restless, pacing near the cabin's small window, her heart a mix of fear, curiosity, and something she couldn't quite name. The events of the past days haunted her, the storm, the wolves, Kale's shifting form, and yet, despite it all, a pull toward him had taken root. Undeniable and magnetic. Kale emerged from the shadows, moving with his usual controlled grace. His eyes caught hers in the moonlight, sharp and intense. "You're still awake," he said, voice low, almost a growl. "I can't sleep," Alara admitted, stepping closer. I need answers. I can't keep pretending I don't see what you are." He stiffened, and for the first time she saw hesitation ripple across his features. "Alara, some truths can't be undone. Once you know them, there's no turning back." She swallowed hard, the pull inside her stronger than fear. "I need to know. I can't keep wondering." Kyle studied her, the golden glow of his eyes flickering in the moonlight. Slowly, deliberately, he extended a hand. "Then you need to understand what this world is, and what it demands of both of us." He led her into the forest, deeper than she had ever gone before, until they reached a small clearing bathed in silver moonlight. The air was thick with magic, the scent of earth and something older, wilder, and almost intoxicating. "Look at the moon," he said, voice softer now. "Do you feel it? The pull?" Alara raised her eyes, noting how the full moon seemed to charge the very air around them. A strange shiver ran down her spine. I feel it," she whispered, "like something inside me is waking." Cal nodded, eyes never leaving hers. That's because you're part of it. Part of the bloodline. Part of the fate that ties you to me. You're my mate, Alara. Not just in legend. Not just in the stories you've heard as a child. It's real. Her heart skipped. Mate? He took a careful step closer. A bond older than memory. Written in our blood. In the moon. In the soul. You were always meant to find me. Always meant to be bound to me. Alara's pulse thundered. The pull she had felt, the inexplicable connection, now made sense. And yet, disbelief warred with instinct. I can't. This is too much. I barely know you and... You do know me, Kyle interrupted, voice firm but not cruel. You've seen me as I am, in the storm, in the fight, in the quiet moments. That is truth, Alara, and it's more than most ever get to see. He took her hands, warm, strong, and grounding. I know it's frightening. I know it feels impossible. But fate isn't something we can choose. We can resist. But the bond is already there, deep in your blood, deep in mine. Alara felt a strange heat flood her chest, a shiver that had nothing to do with the cool night air. There was fear, yes, but also a sense of inevitability, like the world had shifted and she was finally seeing the invisible lines that had always connected her to him. Magic, she breathed, the word barely escaping her lips. All of this, it's real? Kyle's expression softened slightly, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through his guarded exterior. Yes, curses, bloodlines, the full moon. Everything you've heard and feared, it's true. And now it's part of your life. Alara's mind spun, struggling to comprehend the magnitude of it all. Yet, even in the whirlwind of revelation, she sensed the one constant anchor in her world. Kale. Fierce, dangerous, yet impossibly protective. He leaned closer, the pull between them almost unbearable. You don't have to understand everything now, he whispered. Just know this, whatever comes, I'll be there. Always. And you belong with me, Alara. Fate has chosen us both. Her chest tightened, emotions churning. Fear, disbelief, longing, and something raw and undeniable surged through her. She wanted to resist, wanted to step back, but the moment held her in place, and the connection thrumming between them was impossible to deny. In the silver glow of the moon, Kale's hand brushed her cheek, a touch gentle yet possessive, grounding yet awakening. You're not alone anymore, he murmured. Not in this, not ever. Alara's breath caught. The weight of revelation, the depth of danger, and the undeniable pull toward him combined into a dizzying, terrifying, and exhilarating truth. She was no longer just a human caught in a supernatural world. She was part of it. Part of him. And for the first time she realized she wanted it. All of it. The forest was cloaked in shadows that seemed thicker than usual, the full moon barely piercing the canopy. Alara followed Kale through the winding paths, her senses alert, heart pounding, not from the threat of the forest, but from the knot of anxiety in her chest. She had felt the bond between them strengthen, deep and undeniable, yet now a gnawing unease tugged at her. Kale moved ahead, silent and commanding, his golden eyes flashing even in the darkness. Stay close, he warned softly. Something isn't right. Before she could answer, the underbrush rustled violently. Figures emerged, wolves, larger and more coordinated than ever, their eyes glowing with malice. But these weren't alone. From the shadows stepped a human figure, cloaked in darkness, face obscured. Alara, the voice hissed, chilling and familiar. Her stomach lurched. It was someone from her past, a face tied to betrayal she had barely escaped, someone who had caused her to run into this very forest. Kale's growl reverberated through the trees, the low, warning hum of a predator ready to strike. Get behind me! he commanded, his form shifting mid-motion, bone and muscle elongating, fur sprouting along his body in a crackling, painful transformation. Alara's heart pounded. Fear and instinct screamed at her to flee, but she froze, torn between running and staying, between the past that had hurt her and the man-wolf who now towered protectively before her. The cloaked figure stepped closer. "You think you can hide her from me?" the voice spat. "She belongs to me, and I'll make sure you regret standing in my way." Kale snarled, powerful, muscles coiling. "You'll touch her over my dead body." The fight erupted with feral intensity. Kyle moved like lightning, each strike precise, brutal, his wolf form a blur of gold and shadow. Alara barely had time to process the chaos. And then, suddenly, Kale hesitated. In that fraction of a second, the cloaked figure lunged, aiming not for Kale, but for her. Alara screamed, paralyzed by fear, and Kale, in a move she didn't expect, didn't intercept. "Kale!" she shouted, disbelief and hurt warring in her chest. He froze, eyes locked on the figure, conflicted, torn, a shadow of regret flashing across his golden gaze. "Run," he whispered, almost too softly to hear. "Now." Confusion, betrayal and fear collided inside her. "He's letting them get to me," she thought, heart hammering. But before she could react, another force, a surge of raw, protective power, threw the cloaked figure backward. Kale had shifted back, human again, standing between her and the threat, bruised but resolute. Alara's chest heaved. Why didn't you stop them?" Kyle's eyes softened, haunted. "Because I couldn't risk you seeing everything. The truth, the power I carry, the full danger. Some things, some truths, I have to protect you from, even if it means you feel betrayed." Her stomach churned, torn between relief and fury. "Protect me? You nearly—" "I didn't let them touch you," he interrupted, voice taut with emotion. "But sometimes, Alara, protection isn't about standing in front of them. It's about keeping you safe from the knowledge that could destroy you. From the part of me that's dangerous." Tears pricked her eyes, not just from fear, but from the raw vulnerability behind his words. He wasn't lying. He wasn't cruel. He was trying, in the only way he knew how, to shield her. And yet, it hurt, deeply, to feel that gap between them, the weight of unspoken truths. I don't know if I can trust you after this," she admitted, voice breaking. "I want to, but I don't know if I can." Kyle stepped closer, carefully closing the distance without crowding her, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for her. "I understand," he said, voice low, earnest. "You're right. I've kept too much from you. I wanted to protect you, and in doing so, I risked losing your trust. But know this. I would die 1,000 times rather than let anyone hurt you. You are mine, Alara, in every sense that matters." Her chest tightened, conflicting emotions swirling. Anger, fear, longing, and a pull she couldn't deny. Slowly, trembling, she reached for his hand. The contact was electric, grounding yet awakening. She could feel his heartbeat, rapid but controlled, matching her own chaotic rhythm. Kale leaned closer, forehead resting against hers. "I'm sorry," he whispered, a raw, almost painful sincerity in his voice. "I'll never hide from you again. Not if it means losing you." Alara's breath caught. The betrayal, the fear, the near-death experience, all of it converged into a single, undeniable truth. She could not deny him, could not deny the bond that pulled them together. I trust you," she admitted, voice trembling but resolute. "Even if it scares me." A flicker of relief crossed Kale's face, replaced almost immediately by the weight of the fight yet to come. "Then stay close," he murmured, eyes scanning the dark forest. We're not out of danger yet, but together, we can face anything. The moonlight bathed them in silver as they stood there, hands entwined, hearts beating in tandem, bound by fear, trust, and a magnetic pull that neither could deny. The danger was far from over, but for the first time, Alara felt a fragile, terrifying hope. They were in this together. The forest was alive with tension, every shadow a potential threat. Alara's heart hammered in her chest as she ran alongside Kale, mud splashing underfoot, rain slicking their hair and clothes. The wolves had returned, larger, faster, more coordinated than ever, and this time, there was no escape. "Stay close!" Kyle shouted over the roar of the wind, his voice carrying the unyielding authority of an alpha. His golden eyes gleamed in the half-light, scanning for weaknesses in their attackers. Alara barely had time to respond before one of the massive wolves lunged, teeth bared, aiming for her side. Kyle reacted instantly, moving with lethal precision. The swipe of his arm intercepted the attack, knocking the wolf off balance. "You can't keep shielding me forever!" she shouted, breathless. "I'm not helpless!" "I know!" Kale growled, teeth clenched, shifting mid-stride into his wolf form. The bones cracked audibly, muscles expanding, fur erupting across his body. Even in this terrifying, predatory state, there was a clear, unmistakable focus. Alara. "But I won't let you die." The wolves attacked as a pack, testing their defenses, and Kale moved like a blur of gold and shadow. Alara watched, fear and awe battling inside her. She realized then that the pull she felt toward him wasn't just emotional. It was primal, almost magnetic, and it anchored her even in the chaos. One wolf broke from the group, faster than she expected, and she was caught off guard. Time slowed. Her body tensed, and for a horrifying second, she thought she would be thrown to the forest floor. But Kale reacted, faster than instinct, intercepting the wolf, claws and teeth meeting teeth and fur. Alara gasped, heart pounding, and ran toward him, slipping slightly in the mud. Kale's head whipped toward her, eyes blazing gold with a feral intensity that made her chest ache. "Alara, stay behind me." "I'm not hiding anymore," she shouted. "Not from you, not from them." For the first time, Kale hesitated, a flicker of surprise passing through his gaze. "What?" "I trust you," she said, voice raw, almost pleading. "Completely. Just let me fight with you." His ears flattened slightly, a shiver of vulnerability cutting through his ferocity. Then, slowly, he gave a sharp nod. "All right, but stay close, and listen." Together, they moved as one. Kyle's movements were precise, guiding her without words, every swipe of his claws and every lunge calculated. Alara followed instinctively, ducking, rolling, and even striking when she could, adrenaline sharpening her senses beyond ordinary limits. They were a team, fated, connected, unstoppable in the way only bonded mates could be. When the last wolf fled into the shadows, battered but alive, Kale collapsed to his human form, panting, sweat and rain dripping from his face. Alara ran to him, hands shaking as she reached for his shoulder. You could have been hurt," she said, breathless. "I would rather be hurt 1,000 times than lose you," he replied, voice low and hoarse. His hand found hers, gripping tightly. "Alara, I can't hide it anymore. I don't want to." Tears pricked her eyes, not from fear, but from the raw, overwhelming intensity of his words. "Kyle," she whispered, voice trembling. I don't want you to hide from me either." He pulled her close, forehead resting against hers, breath mingling, hearts pounding in sync. "I'm yours," he said, almost reverently. "Fate has bound us, and I love you, Alara. All of you." The fear, the courage, the light, and the shadow. Her own chest ached with emotion, and for the first time since the storm had thrown her into this world, she felt complete. Seen, understood, and cherished. "I love you too," she admitted, voice breaking, yet steady in its truth. "I've been afraid, but not anymore. Not of you. Not of this." The forest seemed to exhale with them, the mist curling gently around their entwined forms, the distant whisper of the wind carrying away fear and leaving only the bond between them, strong, unshakable, and real. Kale's lips brushed hers in a soft, tentative kiss, testing, grounding, sealing the emotional breakthrough that had been building for days. Alara responded instinctively, pressing closer, letting go of hesitation and fear, letting herself be fully, completely present in the connection that had been destined long before either of them understood it. For the first time, the storm outside, and within, felt like it had passed. What remained was the unbreakable bond of trust, love, and shared fate. Whatever dangers lay ahead, whatever shadows awaited in the night, they would face them together. And for the first time, Alara knew with absolute certainty that she had found her place, not just in this supernatural world, but in the heart of the Alpha who had hunted her, protected her, and finally become hers. The forest had quieted, though the tension of the past night still lingered in the damp air. Alara walked beside Kale, hand barely grazing his as they followed a narrow trail toward a hidden clearing he had promised was safe. The moonlight spilled through the canopy, bathing everything in silver, a world that felt both wild and sacred. "You've changed," Kale said suddenly, voice low, eyes fixed on her. There was something raw in his gaze, a vulnerability he rarely allowed anyone to see. Alara tilted her head, curious. "Me? How?" You face fear without running. You've embraced what this world is, even when it terrifies you. You've fought beside me, not behind me. You trust me completely, and that trust, it's rare. Hard to earn, harder to accept." Her pulse quickened. The weight in his words was heavy, but comforting. "Kyle, I had no choice," she said softly, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. "You showed me that running wouldn't save me. I chose to stay because of you." He stopped, turning to face her fully. The golden glow of his eyes flickered with moonlight, raw emotion radiating from him. "Alara, I don't want you to just stay beside me out of fear or loyalty. I want you here because it's us. Because you and I, we're meant to be." Her chest tightened at the undeniable pull of fate in his words. The bond between them, subtle and insistent for so long, was now undeniable, wrapping around her heart with a force she could neither resist nor question. I feel it too," she whispered, voice trembling. "The pull, the connection. I can't explain it, but it's there. I've never felt anything like it before." Kale's lips curved slightly, and for the first time, the predator within him softened, replaced by something tender, devoted, and human. "Then we stop hiding. From each other. From ourselves. From what we are." Alara's breath caught. "Stop hiding?" "Yes," he said, closing the distance between them. Every movement deliberate, every step carrying the weight of longing and inevitability. "I love you, Alara. All of you. The human, the brave, the scared. Everything. And I won't hide it. Not now. Not ever." Her own heart thundered, fear and hope entwined. She reached up, cupping his face, feeling the warmth beneath his skin, the pulse of life, and something wilder beneath it. "I love you too," she admitted, the words trembling but true. "I've been afraid of what this means, of the danger of us, but I can't deny it anymore. I love you." Kale's golden eyes softened into something indescribable, fierce, protective, and infinitely tender. He lowered his forehead to hers, letting the world around them fade. "Then we face everything together," he whispered. "No more running, no more hiding. Whatever comes, we face it as one." A rush of emotions swept through Alara. Fear, relief, exhilaration, and overwhelming love. She pressed closer, letting herself feel the magnetic pull that had drawn them together from the first storm. The moonlight caught in her eyes as she smiled through tears. Kyle's hands traced the curve of her face, his lips brushing hers in a kiss that was tender, fierce, and filled with the promise of everything to come. It wasn't just passion, it was a vow, a binding of hearts and fate. When they finally pulled back, foreheads still touching, breathing mingling, the forest seemed to sigh with them, as if acknowledging the union of their hearts and destinies. "You're mine," Kyle murmured, voice low, reverent. "And I'm yours, fated, unbreakable." Alara's smile was radiant, her chest swelling with the truth of it. "Fated," she echoed, pressing her lips to his once more, feeling the electric certainty of love that was no longer hidden, no longer denied. The bond between them had revealed itself fully, love, trust, and destiny entwined. And in that moment, beneath the silver gaze of the moon, the world felt both infinite and safe, as long as they had each other. The night was alive with tension, the forest whispering warnings with every rustle of leaves and snap of twigs. Alara's heart pounded as she ran beside Kale, his presence grounding her even as danger pressed in from all sides. The rival pack, relentless and cunning, had regrouped, stronger and more coordinated than before. "They've cornered us," Kale growled, shifting mid-stride into his wolf form. His golden eyes glowed fiercely, muscles coiled for battle. "Stay close. Don't move without me." Alara swallowed, fear and determination mingling. "I'm not leaving you," she said, gripping his fur as he bounded through the underbrush. The pull between them, the bond they had confessed and sealed, was electric, almost tangible, urging her to move as one with him. The pack attacked with feral precision, wolves larger than any she had seen lunging from the shadows, teeth bared, eyes glinting with malice. Kale met them head-on, each movement a perfect blend of human strategy and wolf instinct. Alara followed his lead, every step instinctual, adrenaline sharpening her senses beyond normal human limits. One wolf broke through, aiming directly for her. Alara froze for a heartbeat, but Kale's roar, a sound that shook the forest, ripped through the night. He intercepted the wolf mid-leap, claws meeting teeth with a thunderous clash. "You trust me, don't you?" Kale asked, voice low, resonating through her very bones, even as a growl echoed around them. "Yes!" she shouted, heart hammering. "Completely!" He nodded, golden eyes locking with hers. In that moment, fear and danger melted away, replaced by unbreakable connection. Together, they moved as one, instinct and emotion intertwined. Kale lunged, spun, and struck with lethal precision, while Alara dodged, countered, and assisted, their synergy growing stronger with every move. The battle reached a crescendo, wolves circling, snapping, relentless. But Kale and Alara, bound by fate and trust, became unstoppable. With a final coordinated strike, Kale sent the alpha wolf crashing into the underbrush, defeated, the rest scattering into the shadows. Panting, drenched in rain and sweat, Kale shifted back into human form, chest heaving, golden eyes flickering back to their dark, guarded hue. Alara ran to him, hands trembling, gripping his shoulders. "You did it," she whispered, awe and relief flooding her voice. "No," Kale said, brushing wet hair from his face, eyes never leaving hers. We did it. Together. Alara's chest tightened as the magnitude of their victory, and their bond settled over her. The danger had tested them, pushed them to the edge, and in the fire of battle, they had proven their strength not only individually, but as a pair. Kyle pulled her close, forehead resting against hers. "Nothing can break us," he murmured, voice low and reverent. "Not the pack, not the forest, not anything. You and I, we are stronger together than apart. Always." Tears blurred Alara's vision as she pressed her lips to his, a kiss fierce and tender, sealing their triumph and their love. "Always," she whispered, feeling the bond pulse between them. Fated, unbreakable, eternal. The forest seemed to exhale around them, the storm having passed, leaving only the quiet aftermath of survival and victory. In that moment, they were not just alpha and mate, protector and human. They were something greater, bound by destiny, trust, and love that no force could sever. As the first hints of dawn touched the treetops, Alara nestled against Kyle, finally allowing herself to relax fully. The danger was over, the challenge faced, and their bond had emerged stronger than ever. Whatever the world held beyond the forest, they would face it together. Together they had survived. Together they had conquered. And together they would endure. All that remained was the promise of a shared future, written in the moonlight, sealed in blood and heart. The forest was calm now, bathed in the gentle glow of dawn. Mist curled lazily around the trees, and the air smelled of wet earth and renewal. Alara stood beside Kale at the edge of the clearing, watching the sunlight filter through the canopy. For the first time in days, or perhaps years, she felt a quiet peace settle over her. Kale's hand found hers, fingers intertwining with ease, the golden warmth of his skin grounding her. "It's finally over," he said softly, his voice carrying the weight of battles fought and survived. "The pack has dispersed. The threat is gone." Alara let out a long breath, the tension in her shoulders melting. "It feels surreal, like I've been holding my breath forever." "You've been," Kale murmured, brushing a strand of damp hair from her face. His gaze softened, eyes reflecting not the predator of the forest, but the man who had fought to protect her, who had loved her without hesitation. "But now, you can breathe freely, and so can I." They walked together back to the cabin, the path familiar, but now transformed. No longer a place of fear, it had become a sanctuary, a symbol of their survival, their trust, and the bond they had forged. Inside, the small cabin felt warm and safe, firelight dancing across wooden walls. Kyle finally allowed himself to relax, his guard lowering completely in her presence. Alara watched him, marveling at how he could be both fearsome and tender, both wolf and man, both protector and partner. "You belong here," Kyle said quietly, eyes meeting hers. "Not just in the cabin, not just in the forest. You belong with me. With us." Alara smiled, the words resonating deep within her. "I do," she admitted, voice steady. "And I want to. Every part of me. No more running. No more hiding." Kyle drew her close, their bodies pressed together in a quiet, intimate embrace. The bond between them pulsed visibly, golden threads of magic and fate wrapping around their hearts, confirming what they had already known. They were mates, fated and unbreakable. "The curse," Alara whispered, remembering the shadows of the past, the danger, the whispered legends. Kale's lips brushed hers in a soft, reassuring kiss. "The curse is broken. The pack accepts you. And the world? Well, the world can wait. We have each other. That's enough." Alara's heart swelled. She had come here running, from betrayal, from fear, from the unknown. And now, She had found her place, beside Kale, in a world she could finally call home. Together, they stepped outside, the morning sun casting golden light across the clearing. The forest, once a place of danger and uncertainty, now felt alive with possibility, a witness to their survival, their love, and their shared destiny. Kale's arm slid around her waist, pulling her close. "Ready for the next chapter?" he asked, a soft, teasing lilt to his voice. Alara leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "With you?" she murmured. "Always." And for the first time, fear and doubt had no place between them. Only trust, only love, only the certainty of fate fulfilled. Together, Kale and Alara stepped forward, leaving behind the shadows of the past and embracing the infinite possibilities of a future they would face as one. The forest whispered around them, a gentle promise of renewal. And beneath the watchful gaze of the sun and the moon alike, the alpha and his mate finally found the peace, belonging, and love they had both fought for, and truly earned. The cabin was quiet now, the kind of quiet that carried peace instead of fear. Morning light spilled through the windows, painting the wooden floor in golden patterns. Alara sat on the edge of the bed, her hand resting over Kale's, which was still warm and steady. Outside, the forest breathed softly, leaves rustling in a gentle breeze, the world at ease for the first time in months. Kyle stretched beside her, shoulders relaxed, eyes soft as he watched her. "You're awake early," he murmured, voice thick with the kind of intimacy that comes only after trust and trials shared. "I couldn't sleep," Alara admitted, her gaze lingering on him. "Not because I'm worried, but because it finally feels safe. With you." A slow smile curved his lips. "Safe. And ours," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. His fingers lingered, tracing the line of her cheek in a gesture both tender and possessive. "I've waited a long time for this, for you." Alara leaned into him, heart full. "So have I. I ran for so long, Kale. From fear, from pain, from everything. But I don't run anymore. Not from you. Not from us." He pulled her closer, arms enveloping her in a protective, grounding embrace. "Then stay," he whispered. "Stay with me. Here, in this world, with me. Always." Alara closed her eyes, letting the weight of the past dissolve. The storms, the betrayal, the near-death encounters, they had all led to this. A calm, unshakable certainty. She was no longer just a human in a supernatural world. She was Kale's mate, his equal, his partner in every sense of the word. "I will," she murmured against his chest. "Always." They stayed like that, silent except for the rhythm of their breathing, the heartbeat of the forest around them, and the subtle pull of the bond that had been fated long before either of them understood it. Outside, the first rays of sunlight touched the treetops, glinting off dew-laden leaves. The world was waking, bright and full of possibility, but within the cabin, time seemed to pause, a sanctuary of warmth, love, and safety. Kale pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, lingering, almost reverent. "Whatever comes next," he whispered, "we face it together. No secrets, no fear, only us." Alara smiled, her eyes reflecting the sunlight and the depth of her heart. "Only us," she echoed. And for the first time, everything felt complete. The dangers had passed, the bond had been tested, and love had prevailed. In the quiet morning light, in the heart of the forest, Kale and Alara found their home. Not a place, but a connection, a promise, and a future they would walk together. No shadows remained. Only them, entwined in trust, passion, and fate, ready to face whatever new dawn awaited.